And then what they try to do is, well, why you talking like this and you a married woman? But then also they'll be like, well, to the single women, well, why you talking? You single. What you know about anything? And then they don't know that we're just talking to each other. The single women are talking to the married women, are talking to the divorced women. So we getting all of the information because what in generations past, because we didn't have social media, we didn't have the instantaneous sharing of information. We all thought that we were the problem. Like, this is us. What do I need to do better? What class do I need to take as a woman? Is there a wife school to be better? But it's not us. It's not us. Even the most mediocre of wives is still probably doing the majority of the stuff in the
Mhm,
house.
mhm. So what we were doing, like, so in my era, our social media and our counseling came from TD Jakes. Now, I don't consider myself a Christian. And when I'm talking about God, I'm talking about her. I'm talking about the divine feminine. But I remember in my era, there was and it was about, I guess, like in the 90s, I think. We were in our 20s in the 90s in my era. And it was TD Jakes with The Woman Thou Art Loose. He had this big old campaign about what we as Black women needed to do. And it was, we need to better ourselves. They wanted us to be these perfect women so that when the men, and then when men would come back, they wanted us to allow the men to run out and get all these skeletons, defile themselves, have babies, mix match babies up and down and everywhere. And then we would be sitting in the church waiting for them, and they could come and cleanse themselves with inside of us.
Mm.
And that's what we listened to. And that's why I went through a whole thing, especially after that whole thing with the fiance, having dated him. And I don't want to get too far off topic. I don't know why my parents even allowed me to date him. I was living at home. I was 18 years old, had grown up as a Jehovah's Witness, had never been out on a date. And the first man that they let me go out onto a date with comes and picks me up at my house, is 26 years old, a worldly man that's been to the military and all these other places. And the only thing that he did was pressure me into intimacy. That's all he did. Everything was about the very first date. All he did was badger, badger, badger. That's the other thing we've got to do. We've got to stop raising our girls to be so naive. We've got to teach them
Yeah.
the game. You walk into a barbershop there and they're telling them the game. We're in the beauty shop talking about how pretty she is and you better keep yourself clean because you gotta be a good woman because you're a good woman.
Right.
They'll pick you.
And so that's another issue with women talking to women in times past. It like we don't have the built up immunity to their games because we tell the girls, keep your legs closed and stay in them books. No dating until, for me, it was no dating until I was at least 16. But you don't create the immunity. You're not prepared for these males. And what I don't like about some women, even right now, where they're like, well, why didn't you see the red flags? Because we're not given the information to see these red flags. Like literally, we see like we don't have that game. We don't have that foundation to see these games that men play until now, where we're like, this is a red flag. This is a siren going off. So we have got to get out of the purity culture of religion where girls have to be virginal, white as snow, and then you're gonna have this man with his toxic baby batter coming and skeeting into all of these pure snow white virgin pure
Mhm.
girls, and now we're defiled because they have been running rampant.
And I'm so glad that you mentioned that because, and like I said, we're going to talk about, and I'll give the name of my girls program. I've had it since 2009, but I'm actually launching it where I am now, which is across the country from where I used to live. And that was one of the things when I was forming the program. I did a lot of research. I spent over $100,000 putting together the program, and I would look for women, and this was in the early to mid 2000s, and I was trying to find women because it's a perfect formula of building self-esteem in girls. I've had more than 800 girls that have graduated. None of them were teen mothers. They all went into career jobs. They went to college. Some are have graduated college, and they now have girls programs that they're running.
Hmm.
And one of the things is that I really try to promote is making sure that we pour into the girls, that we teach them how important it is to not put all of their value in purity. And as I was saying, when I would try to find women to open up various chapters, because everybody wanted the program in the state that I was in, they would always come with this purity platform. And I do not believe in it. And I had one woman that I thought would be just absolutely wonderful with this, actually in the state that I'm in now, that I want to launch the program. But she's like, well, I've got to put that purity element in there. And then I explained, she started it. And then I explained to her, here's the reason why we can't go with the purity element. Let me tell you why we can't go with the purity element, because too many of our girls have been molested. Too many of our girls have been, and I had with my program, I had a young lady that came from foster care. She was 15 years old, and my girls were asked to go to be on a panel, and there was an organization, a fraternity that was having a young men's forum for boys that were, I think, 11 to like 16. And they said, well, we want some girls to be on the panel. So I had some of my girls that were sitting on the panel, and the others were sitting out in the audience. And they were just having, it was just a great conversation for young people to have. And they were asked the girls questions, they'd ask the boys questions. And one of the little girls that had come out of foster care, just very, very naive, who had been essayed by her father from the age of 7 to 14. And that's why she had been taken out of the home. She was put into a Black woman's home, and that Black foster mom brought her to me. And she's sitting out in the audience. And somehow it came up about being a virgin came up. And because it was a real honest conversation that we were having. And so she stood up and asked a question. And her question was, well, being naive, this poor baby, if you've been raped, I don't know if we can say it on live, if you've been essayed by your father, would you still be considered a virgin? It was at least 500 people there. And it shocked me. But guess what? We were in an audience, and it was such a pure conversation that none of the boys laughed. None of the girls laughed. Nobody. She didn't even know what she had said. And it was a young man there, and they were alphas, and he was about, I say probably about 25 or something like that. And he just gave, and I won't be able to say it as well as he said it, but he said to her, young lady, no, none of us in here, would any of you all consider that, and every boy in there started clapping their hands, and it just was just that we just happen to be in an environment in which, and that is why I don't believe in that whole purity thing, because too many of our girls have been assaulted by their fathers, by their brothers, by grown men in the community. You cannot, especially for Black girls, when they are so victimized, you can't be doing these purity programs because it makes them feel dirty.
And some of us, and not me, but I go hard for these women and these girls because of the trauma in their life as children. They act out in certain ways as they become adults. And so when a woman is, promiscuous as an adult, if she is overeating as a coping mechanism, if she is abusive towards her children because she was abused, it's like at some point in time, we have got to look at people in their totality of humanness and get to the bottom of it, because of trauma causes reactions that are not natural. What people do to cope, to survive, is not natural. Now, I used to be a personal trainer, right? And so when I became a personal trainer, I'm like, I'm going to help people. I'm going to give people the perfect workout. We're going to do this. I'm going to give them some diet stuff. We're going to get this. But then I was in it for a few years, and they are talking to me. I cannot help somebody that is not going to be helped because they were defeated as a child because their mother wouldn't put them in dance class. But I can't help a woman who is taking care of her elderly parents and her husband who has failing health and has teenage kids. Like you kind of become a therapist of sorts, because your health and wellness and how you live is a factor of everything. It's not, if you were born into a 2-parent household. No. What if you were born into an urban center that has a failing school? What if it's unsafe to walk down the street and you are flight or fight, and now you're cussing and fussing at everybody because that is your fight or flight hormone trying to keep you safe. So there are so many different things that go into it. And that is the reason why we have to continue to have these conversations, because so many of us get on our high horse like, I haven't been victimized yet because I put on a jacket and I
Yeah.
am, I am modest and I just, well, good for you. I'm glad that you're lucky. I'm lucky too. But that doesn't mean that this young girl, this young woman is supposed to go through what she went through.